If anybody says to you, I can send you 100 leads a month, to me, that's an immediate red flag. Me as a business owner and as an agency owner, what I would say to a small business owner is my goal is to send you MQLs or SQLs, a marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. And what that means is I'm not satisfied in sending you only the lead. I want to know what happened to that lead. Did it close?
For SMB owners with smaller budgets, what are the most impactful strategies they can adopt to get the highest ROI from their ad spend?
Yeah, we really love working with small businesses. Our portfolio has both extremes. So on one end of the spectrum, we have a small business that we work with that does $5 million a year. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have a company that we work with that's publicly traded that does about $6 billion a year in revenue. And then we have everything in between. I really enjoy working with the small biz SMB segment, primarily because that's not to say we don't like working with larger size businesses, but I think what's interesting about SMBs is we're able to work directly with the business owner in most instances, which allows us to make progress faster. So I think in terms of strategies, what we found is we know that small businesses have finite budgets, unlike some of the other clients that we work with that might be VC backed, and they may have a lot of money that they can invest in digital marketing. In fact, they may have a lot of tolerance for testing and losing money in order to make money. Not everyone, but in some cases, we know that small businesses operate a bit more lean with a bit more limited budget. And so for us, what we want to do is really evaluate all of the things that we need in order to invest money on their behalf. So we're not even thinking about investing in Google or Facebook for these businesses. First, what we want to look at is their website, right? We want to look at what does their website look like? Where are we sending traffic to? What do those pages look like? Do we need to optimize those pages? If so, let's work with our designer to make improvements to that page so that when we send traffic, the likelihood of that traffic converting increases because we've done the work on making that landing page much stronger. So we'll look at the website, we'll look at the landing page, then we'll look at tracking. In business, you can't manage what you can't measure. And what we find with a lot of small businesses is their level of sophistication around tracking and creating the appropriate tracking infrastructure to support their business is lacking. So we'll talk to them about tracking, and then we'll work with them on implementing the appropriate tracking so that every dollar we invest on their behalf is able to be sort of tied back to a specific effort, a specific source, whether it's Google, it's Facebook, it's Yelp, whatever is appropriate for that business. So it's really focusing on the website experience, on the tracking infrastructure. It's understanding what the value proposition is for this business. How are they different than their competition? Because we want to use some of those points of differentiation in the messaging that we create and that we push out to the consumer through ads, right? So it's understanding some of those things. It's understanding who their ideal customer profile is. So who are they trying to reach, right? Let's be very clear on what our definition is of the audience, like who is our target customer. So once we have some of that data, then we have a better sense for what channels we should be targeting to reach those customers, right? Because not every channel reaches the same user. Some demographics are different, right? So some of those things are things that we'll talk about with clients in terms of some of the strategies and tactics we have to implement or consider before going sort of live.
It's a great point you brought up by when you said you can't manage what you can't measure. I think for a lot of entrepreneurs and first time SMB owners, there's a steep learning curve with learning how to measure and learning what to measure. And you've mentioned a 9-category audit framework for paid media. Could you walk us through a couple of these categories that SMB owners should focus on right away?
Yeah. So when we talk about audits, a lot of companies will come in and they'll say, hey, we'll take a look at what you're doing. And provide an assessment. And oftentimes what we found is that these are very superficial assessment. In fact, they'll pretty much copy and paste a Google assessment, that can be found within the Google Ads platform. They will say, hey, these are some recommendations we make. And if you do these things, you should see an improvement. Unfortunately, what we find is there's some value in some of those recommendations, but most of them are not necessarily aligned with what's appropriate for that business, right? So they're just sort of auto generated recommendations. And some we should pay attention to and we should check off, and others really don't apply or we should ignore. So when we do an audit, it's really the most important part of our sales process, and the way in which we bring value to a prospect is by way of an audit. And so our audits are very deep, right? And what I mean by that is we're going to ask our prospect to give us access to their ads account, whether there's, depending on where they're spending money, but if it's on Google and Facebook, we're going to ask for them to grant us permission, read only permission to view their ad accounts. And then we're going to spend probably about 15 hours looking under the hood, looking at everything, right? Like their targeting, their tracking, the performance, the keywords, like all of these things that are important when managing, a Google Ads account or a Facebook account. We're going to look at the creative if it's Facebook, right? What kind of creative are they using? How often are they testing new concepts? What do those concepts look like? And what we're going to do is we're going to take a peek under the hood and perform a physical examination of their ads account. And we are going to put together a presentation that will provide the good, the bad, the ugly. So our assessment, not based on opinion, but based on experience and math, on what we see is being done well, what we see is in need of improvement, and most importantly, what we would do if we were in the driver's seat. And so it gives someone a very clear picture and understanding of how we think about digital marketing and how we think of their business working together. And it gives them an opportunity to really test us, challenge us, ask us questions. Do they align with the direction that we're mapping out in terms of where we want to take their business? If there's misalignment, where is there misalignment? Let's talk through those things. And it's really just us spending time focused on their business. We're not reviewing a case study that we did for a like business. We're actually diving deep into their business and what we confidently believe is needed to turn their business around. And oftentimes with small businesses, what we find is they have been working with a inexperienced agency or a contractor or someone that just doesn't have the ability to take them to the next level, right? They don't pay attention to the details. And if you're not sweating the small stuff, then, what's happening with the big stuff, right? And so I think for us, what we find is that oftentimes when people allow us to look at their accounts, small businesses in particular, it's, we work with these people and they're not really interested in really understanding these things for our business. They only say they can send us leads. In our business, that's a red flag. If anybody says to you, I can send you 100 leads a month, to me, that's an immediate red flag, right? So me as a business owner and as an agency owner, what I would say to a small business owner is my goal is to send you MQLs or SQLs if you're, a B2B company, right? Marketing qualified lead or a sales qualified lead. And what that means is I'm not satisfied in sending you only the lead. I want to know, either through my own access to your CRM tool, HubSpot, Salesforce, what that lead looks like. Who filled out that lead? Is that lead within the ICP that we were targeting, the ideal customer profile? What happened to that lead? Did it close? If it closed, why did it close? I'd like to know so that maybe I can build that into the messaging we have on creative. What sort of attracted David to this ad? And if David gives me that input, then I might be able to use some of that for our marketing on the front end. If it didn't close, why didn't it close? Was it that we reached the wrong person? Was it the price? Was it the feature set? Was it the salesperson? So we want to sort of ask all these questions. We're not satisfied with just saying to the prospect, we're going to send you leads, and then we sort of release ourselves from any responsibility.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I've been on the receiving end of some people outreaching saying that they could send, 6-figure leads my direction, and I was a little bit hesitant about the quality of those leads. So thank you for shedding some light on the difference there. What's a common mistake, or perhaps another common mistake you see companies make when they manage their own campaigns, and how can they fix it?
I would say a common mistake that we see, it goes back to tracking. Like we really, even to this day, we scratch our heads. We now are never surprised, but we're still surprised when we find a business that's been operating for a decade not have tracking or not have the appropriate tracking to allow them to look at some of the most important metrics for their business. So like it's so important to set up the tracking and test the tracking on an ongoing basis to make sure that it's working as it should. Because ultimately, like, how do you make decisions, right? And if you don't know, and it's not just about tracking, it's also passing back the right information, right? It's the revenue. There's a lot of things that we want to be able to analyze, right? Looking at lifetime value of a customer, average order value. Like there are all of these data points that we want to be able to analyze. And so I think a common mistake is that a lot of these companies don't set up the tracking the way it needs to be set up. I don't think that they have the expertise on some of the technical pieces of how to use these platforms on targeting, brand versus non-brand. Like there are all of these like things that people need to know when managing an ad campaign that I just think a lot of small business people don't have either the experience or a partner that understands how to use them. It's creative testing is a big one too. I don't see a lot of folks doing enough creative testing or testing of offers. I think they don't come up with new offers to test throughout the year to help attract new customers. So I would say some of those are they don't have a great website, which to me is kind of like a basic principle, right? They don't put effort into their website. They don't spend money on some of the images, on some of the content, to help support the website and some of the efforts that we're doing in advertising that then brings people back to the website.
Your website is 415digital.com. That's four spelled out and 15 with the numbers. Is there anywhere else you'd like to point people?
I think, our website, there's a form, contact us. If you fill that out, we'll get back to you, schedule a consultation to learn more about your business, tell you a little bit more about us. And then if it makes sense, we'd move on to providing a free audit, which by the way, has a pretty significant value associated with it, but we offer that free of charge. So we're happy to do audits for clients that are interested.
Amazing. Well, thank you once again.
Nice speaking with you, and thanks for having me on. I enjoyed the conversation.